Okay, so in this section right here, what we're going to do is model our weapon for Unreal Tournament. Now, there's some rules that we kind of need to follow when we're modeling a weapon, don't we, Philip?
Certainly.
First of all, we kind of need to make sure that the weapon fits within inside of a certain sized box, right?
128 by 128 by 128.
Position down, -64 in the Z-axis. I guess we could go ahead and build one, right? Let's go ahead and come over here and click on Box. And I'm going to come down to Keyboard Entry. And then from inside here, I'm going to set my length to 128, width to, well, if I can find it, 128, and height to 128. And we're going to do in Z -64. And we'll go ahead and create that. Now, of course, that makes it pretty hard to see what's going on inside our scene. So
we're going to do something about it.
Yeah, we'll probably come in here and my guess is would right-click on it, come down to Properties, and we could do a few things like let's just display it as a box so that we don't see it, shade it. Let's freeze
So what that
it.
means is we're displaying it as a bounding box, really.
Exactly. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and there you go. Okay, so that doesn't get in our way, and since we froze it also, that works as well. Now, what's up with this character we got in there already?
Well, we're going to be using the character here to align our weapon to her. So this is basically a character that's come out of Unreal. We've had her export it. And by having her in the viewport, we don't have to, in other words, we're certain that when we pull in our weapon, it will be in the exact right spot.
Now, even though you'll find tutorials on the net that talk about making sure you have this 128 by 128 by 128 box and all that good stuff, you'll find that by creating weapons, and even though you keep them inside this box, if you start to get real close to the edges, we can run into trouble, can't we?
Exactly. The converter will start complaining about bad coordinates.
So by having a character in there ahead of time, this kind of helps out nicely in making sure, first of all, the proportions of your gun, and you won't want to go all the way out to the edges because you can, get a good reference here. And you're going to see as we get ourselves set up and we start actually modeling that it's all about the reference in order to, get the model modeled right.
All right.
So we've got some art that we have already. Well, I guess real quick before I start getting into the art, let's go back to the character real quick. Jayhawk exported this out of Unreal Tournament, and I just thought I'd say that. So if you guys want to know how to go about exporting it out, since that wasn't put on the slate of things to talk about, just PM Jayhawk and he'll walk you through it. So next thing we'll do, let's go ahead and delete this little weapon out, the little weapon holder. And I do guess one more thing. I don't know if you're aware of this, Philip, but using this as a reference right here, when we actually create our weapon and we bring it into Unreal, when you see the character holding it, this is basically that particular view. It's the one with the character holding it.
It's the third-person view, yes.
Exactly. But when you actually, have the first-person view, the weapon is going to actually be dead center in front of you. Okay. So let's go ahead and delete out our cute little weapon that's in there at the moment, and let's start setting ourselves up a virtual studio, if you will, a reference. So we'll come in here and I'll just start out with a little plane. And if you want to do any talking, Philip, while I start doing stuff.
Another thing we got to remember is once we start modeling the gun, we got to make sure to keep our poly count quite low. Typically, Unreal weapons are anywhere between 200 and 400 polygons.
Yeah, absolutely. So you don't want to get carried away and have a very
dense gun.
Exactly. Now,
what you could do is have a really, really dense third-person gun and then a really, really low poly first-person gun.
True.
So when you're playing and everybody sees you, every screen freezes, but you're going.
Exactly. So what I've done so far, I've created a plane, and I've taken a material and assigned it to that plane. And I'll go ahead and tell the material type that it's going to be double-sided so that I can indeed see it on both sides. And now I just want to put an image in there, an image that we've had Philip go in there, use a little ruler, and construct out with our weapon. So we'll come into our diffuse channel, and let's go ahead and put a bitmap on that. And we're going to come over here. We're up under our gun folder that we've created, and we're going to do a side reference here. So I'll go ahead and tell it OK. And go ahead and jump back up. Yeah, let's go ahead and turn on, show the bitmap inside our viewport there so you can actually see it. And I'll go ahead and turn my grid off by hitting G. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply a UVW map modifier to this, and we'll make sure we do a bitmap fit so that the image is on there correctly. So go ahead, Philip.
Well, you said it yourself.
Anything you want to talk about while I'm just working here?
All that's happening right now, it's just important that we keep the proportions of the image. In other words, if you don't do this bitmap fit, the image is going to lay to match the plane. Now, by doing the bitmap fit, we're going to lay to match our actual drawn bitmap. Now, something else I'll go ahead and point out right now is I've come back into my material and I step back down into the actual bitmap. And what I want to do is uncheck my tiling. And if I wanted to, I could even, at this point, I could change the size of my plane, but we kind of need to talk about how we want this image to be. So I can go ahead and come in here
open up my UVW mapping modifier, grab my gizmo. Let's come up here to scale. And I'm just going to go ahead and scale it up a little bit, but I'm going to make sure that it stays, of course, in the image. And as I scale, another thing I want to do is also move it. So we'll go ahead and just grab, translate there, and kind of move it forward. And just get it close, you know.
Just get close. And again, you can do all this with spinners, so the length with height spinners and UVW spinners, but it's a lot more interactive to just drop down to the gizmo.
So what do you think? That looks pretty good right there. Yeah. So let's go ahead and come back down to our plane now. And if we wanted to, actually we're not going to be able to come off too much right here in the size because of it being in the back. So we'll just leave it the way it is. So the next thing that we want to do is come in and
duplicate the plane?
Actually, yeah, let's do. You know what? I'm so picky here. We'll just move this back. We'll center it. I'm sorry. When I work, I'm just really picky. And we'll take, not that one, but we'll take our width, and we'll just go ahead and pull it down to about right there. And then we'll just come back up here, and we'll move the entire thing forward like this. That makes me a little better.
All right.
Now the next one we'll do is we'll go ahead and set up for, I don't know, what reference you want to do now? Front,
top,
maybe?
Front, whatever.
The top. All right, well, let's just go ahead and come in here, and I'm just going to hold, well, first of all, I'm going to turn on angle snap just to make things a little bit easier. Hold shift down and then simply just rotate this thing 90 degrees. Hello. Of course, with everything running on the computer right now for duplicating, it makes things a little slow. So there's 90 degrees. I'll do a regular copy, tell it OK, and we'll go ahead and apply new material. We could have, of course, copied the material, changed the name. It doesn't matter. Again, double-sided, diffuse channel. Let's come in here and do a bitmap, and this time it's going to be our front reference. So we'll tell it OK. And again, you know, I want to go ahead and make sure that we're showing this thing, and we can hit F3, and let's go ahead and there we go. And again, you can see that our material is, our bitmap's really stretched right here, so we can simply come back down here and do another bitmap fit.
And then just remember to pick the right bitmap.
Yeah, and in this case, of course, we're doing a front.
Yeah.
So now we've got that, and we could, trying to fight off a sneeze at the moment. So let's go ahead and
maybe turn off tiling?
We could turn off tiling, or, which we'll go ahead and do that, or we could simply just come back down to our plane right here and, again, just bring the size in like such.
All right.
So something like that. And now, you know, at this point, Philip, you want to talk a little bit about, we got to worry about some sizing issues in here.
Okay.
I mean, look.
Well, you're welcome to scale it proportionally. That won't mess up the size.
Exactly. So I may need to just kind of come up here and grab my gizmo and start scaling a little.
Yes.
So we'll just go ahead and start scaling my gizmo up. And now another thing to understand that's important to look at is what exactly are you seeing? Well, this line right here should be matched up with the bottom line up here. And the top line up at the top should, of course, match up with the top line here as well because it's a front image. So we'll just go ahead and kind of scale it up to about, maybe about right there.
That's pretty good.
And so you can see the bottom matches, and I'll hit W to go and move. And actually, we don't want to move that. Let's go ahead and come back up and move the entire thing. And our top is off just a little bit, so we could come in here and we could move it up just a little bit, kind of in between the two.
Okay.
Hit R and then just scale it just a fraction of a hair like that. And now if we come back over, we're matching up at the top, and if we move back forward, we should be dead on with
yeah, exactly.
So that's looking pretty good now. Another thing I'll go ahead and point out while I'm in here at the moment is it might be a good idea if you take this and watch the grid as it becomes in front of my actual plane right there. We'll just move it back, and there it is. This is so that when we start drawing out splines in a little bit, it works pretty good right there.
Right.
And another thing that we might also want to do is if you want to come over here and center this up with our world, maybe about right there, that'll make a little bit of the modeling things that we do a little bit later a little easier.
Okay.
Okay. And so this leaves us with just one more to do.
One last reference.
So we're going to do a top reference. So again, we'll just simply come up here, and we'll take this guy here, and we'll rotate him over. So we'll just take him and hold shift, and we will rotate him back 90 like such. And we'll go ahead, again, do a copy. And let's see how things are looking. Of course, obviously, we're going to need to scale things up a little bit. And the way I'm scaling things here is I'm just coming in again to the plane. So we'll do something maybe like that. And translate tool, and let's go ahead and move this guy on forward. So like that. And you probably guessed it, back over to the UVW mapping modifier. We'll come back down. We're going to do another bitmap fit. And
is that the right map you've got going?
And you know what, though? Yeah, that's probably a good idea is to go ahead and assign it. It would work, though.
It would.
I mean, because it would get the coordinates right. But we'll go ahead, come over here, drop that guy on two-sided, and again, we'll put a bitmap in there. And this time we're going to do reference top. So we'll tell it OK.
And we actually have a perspective drawing of this thing if you want to show the viewers what the reference looks like.
Actually, in this case, we haven't done the intro yet.
All right.
And so those out there that are listening to this, when we do the intro, I think we'll probably do it at that time. So now we'll go ahead and tell it, course, I could turn on showing while I'm down at the bitmap level. That's just a habit of mine. So I'll go ahead and come in here, and it looks like we need to go ahead and rotate this guy. But first, I'll do the bitmap fit again, and we'll come in here. We'll do the reference top. There we go. And then we'll just simply open it up, grab our gizmo, and we'll rotate. And so, again, we're just rotating it on over, about right there. And now, again, it comes down to just making it all line up. But it looks like we are, I'd say that's close
pretty
enough.
good to go, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing, come in here, look at the top. We may want to consider moving this over a little, or are you happy with it?
I'm pretty happy with it.
If we just take, I just get real picky when I work with my references, move this up a little bit. You can see we are just a little bit off in size right there, but what do you think? Just go for it anyways?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so, and we're a little close on the edge over there, too. This is where Philip wants to kill me because I'm just getting so picky, but I'm just going to give myself a little bit of extra room like that. All right, so with this out of the way, the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to simply close my material editor, come up here, do a file, save as, and just increment my number so that we've got this guy saved. Now, before we move on, next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and basically template all of my planes right here. I'm going to freeze them.
Yes.
So to do that, we'll just come in here and we'll grab and grab.
So this is the same thing we did with the box earlier. We're just making it non-selectable.
And grab. So do I have them all or not?
We'll just start freezing whatever you have.
Yeah, we'll find out in a second. So I'll come over here to display. We can just do a freeze by hit or freeze selected. Let's find out who all we have. So we only had one guy right there. You can see how he turned gray, so we can undo that. Let's go ahead, and so with that one, I'm going to come back in here again and Control Select and come over. If you see that you can't select him, go to the other side because that's where his normal is, and we'll select him. Now I do have everybody, and what I could do is just simply from display, I could come down here to the bottom and turn off Show Frozen in Gray, and then come up and do Freeze Selected. And what this is going to do now is if I come in here and I try to select, you'll see that I cannot select these guys.
But they're still drawn in the viewport.
But they're still drawn in the viewport. Another thing that we're also going to need to do is come in here and, we'll go ahead and open our material editor back up and talk about this now, is we're going to start creating things in a second. It's going to be hard to see exactly where you're creating things because you're going to have these images get in the way. And so one of the things you'll do is come back to your material, and we'll simply take the opacity down a little bit.
Get some nice hardware opacity.
Yeah, so that looks
beautiful.
But we'll be able to see. That's kind of the key thing right there. So we'll just come back into the other ones as need be, and we'll go ahead and come back in here and do a quick save real fast. So with that, we're about to get started modeling, but what we'll do is we'll go ahead and save this section right here, so just in case we have any application crashes along the way, we haven't lost anything valuable.
All right.
So we'll be right back. All right, so now that we've got everything set up and we're back in our second segment, blah, 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 let's go ahead and start modeling. I don't know, what do you think, Philip? Should we start off first with
the front?
How about, the barrel right here?
All right.
So we'll tackle it with an incredibly sophisticated cylinder.
All right.
So we'll grab a cylinder here, and I'll just draw it out somewhere over here in my front viewport, and we'll go ahead and draw it out in that direction there. Okay. Now, by default, let's go ahead and select move this guy on forward. I've got a few settings that were already predefined where we've recorded this once, and we had a little max problem and we had to start again. So anyways, you'll by default when you create a cylinder, of course, you're going to have a lot higher segment count in your height direction. I'm just knocking that all the way down to 1 because we don't need a lot of detail in here. And also for our sides, what is the default size, like 18 or something?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah, I've taken it down to 15 and turned smooth off because we're not looking for the smoothing. There are smoothing groups right here. We just want it to be very hard edged. So now what I'll do is I'll simply just go ahead and align this guy up using my viewport. So we just take him, kind of move him down somewhere right about there. Take our radius up.
There you go.
And, right about there maybe, and adjust our height as well. So that looks pretty good. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and pull every third vertex in so that we can give kind of the barrel chamber look. Yeah, define our barrel.
5 little chambers.
So we'll go ahead and come over here, and I'm going to convert it to an editable poly. And we'll just simply switch over into vertex mode. And we'll come up here, and we'll start grabbing. So 1, we'll skip 2, and just simply keep grabbing. If you want to say anything, Philip, while I'm doing this.
Well.
Okay, that was pretty good. And
okay.
So now we're going to go ahead and scale this guy down, and we'll just scale him down in our X and our Y direction.
Okay, and make sure you're in. There you go.
We're going to come over here and do it down by
relatively.
Yeah, relatively, and 80 and 80. Numbers that we've decided that work pretty good for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so this gives us what we want. But you know what? Looking back over here, we've got smoothing groups that managed to somehow get turned back
Yeah, it looks
on.
like when you did the conversion, it put them back in.
So when a person gets stuck in a situation like this, we need to get them out. We need to go ahead and come over.
Yeah, there you go.
And
we could probably even do element, but...
And then come all the way down to the bottom. Good. Good.
There you go.
And then we want to go ahead and say...
Auto smooth?
Auto smooth? You sure you want auto smooth? Looks like it works for me.
It might be. Is it hard edged all the way?
See, no, I don't think so. I think you've got basically the way it works
the
is
angle to 0.
Exactly. So now we've got, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and, what do you say, we'll start on our, what do we want to call those, the deflectors or the...
Yeah, little protectors around the chamber.
Okay.
Little shutters.
So we'll do that by coming over here, and we will create a...
N-gon, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds good. So come over to Spline Creation, N-gon. We'll make this guy with 6 sides, and just draw out here somewhere in the center. Of course, I could just simply, when I'm done, we could go ahead and rotate them. So I'll come over here, rotate them 90 degrees. Okay? And then we could also come in and simply align to this guy. Yeah, and we'll just align all the way. There we go. And perhaps even pull them back a little bit, maybe to about right there. I'm looking at my reference up here. So my size is actually pretty close, but you know what? This guy's going to have an inner and an outer surface,
ring,
if you will. So what I need to do is go ahead and bring his size down. So I'll come back over to the Modify panel and adjust my radius here, and I'll just get down to where it's relatively close. Oh, no, you happy with that right there?
Pretty good.
And then we'll just go ahead and convert this guy over to an editable spline. And I'll come down here, grab the entire spline, like such. And now I'm going to use outline, so we'll come on down here to the outline area, to create the outer ring around this guy. So outline, and whoa, a little bit too big. So maybe right around there. Of course, you could always come back over here, and we'll just come back into doing a uniform scale, and we could just go ahead and scale this guy up a little bit. I don't know. Does that look pretty good to you?
Okay.
And let's go ahead and switch over into segments, and we'll take the segments on this side and delete them. But you know what?
I think
in our scaling right there, we ended up with a little bit of a problem. So let's go ahead. The new scaling is just loads of fun inside of Mac. So we'll grab this, and and we actually just did on 2 axes. So I don't know, about right there looks pretty good. We'll simply switch back over into segment. We'll grab these guys right here, and we will delete them.
All right.
So the next thing we want to do is we go ahead and create a line over here. So we'll come in back up here, and I'm going to turn snapping on. We'll turn off our angle snap, create line, and we're just going to snap from this vertex to this vertex.
And by default, you're not set to snap to vertex. So you might want to show that if you right-click
Yeah,
on it,
if you come right-click on this guy up here, you see we've got grid points or vertex. You can just simply turn grid points off or anything else that you may have set in there. So that looks pretty good. Now the problem that we've got at the moment is that we've got multiple, we'll go ahead and turn snapping off. We've got multiple vertices on top of each other. So if I come in here, switch back into vertex sub-object mode, grab these vertices, you'll see I've got 2 vertices selected. So all I need to do is simply weld them together. So we'll click weld. You'll see now that I've got a specific vertex selected, not multiple ones. We'll go ahead and come down here, again, 2 vertices, and I'll just continue doing this. So, and I could select them all because our threshold's really low, or just do one at a time because I'm crazy. Now I'm going to come back in here, select all of these guys, and go ahead and right-click, and I want to convert their type from Bezier corner to simple corners.
Okay.
So there we go. We've got simple corners now. And since we're going to actually do the polygon extrusion earlier with capping, we'll just take this guy and do an extrude modifier on him.
Okay.
So with him selected, I'll simply come up here, hit E. We're going to apply an extrude modifier to him. And you can see now that it's turned ourselves into a surface, and we are lined up with our, well, for the most part, close enough anyways, with our reference. And then I'm simply going to, I'm looking up here in this viewport, just adjusting it. There we go.
Yeah, because there's going to be 4 of those.
So that looks pretty good. And now I can go ahead and simply right-click over here, collapse the whole stack. And now...
Did you cap both sides?
Do it. There and there.
Yay, all right.
Of course. What is this? Now from there, I'm simply just going to come up here and shift select, drag forward, and there's just a little bit of spacing in there. So about there.
Okay.
And copy type. So we'll go ahead and tell it OK. Now what I want to do is duplicate both of these onto the other side. And in doing that, what I want to do, I can go ahead and just select them both. I'm going to change my coordinate reference system over.
Yeah, I guess you really don't need this since you aligned them earlier. Well, it looks like your pivot is actually offset.
And you know what, though?
Your pivot is offset, so yeah.
It is. I'm going to actually back this off just a fraction of a hair because we don't want them butt up against one another. So then I'll go ahead and come down here and say I'm going to pick this guy right here. and I want to use that.
Third mode there.
Yeah, so we'll simply say I'm using that as my pivot point for these guys. And then I can simply come up here to mirror selected objects, and we'll mirror it around on the x-axis, but right now we've got no clone selected, so we'll go ahead and come down here and say as a copy.
Yay.
And there you go. So we'll go ahead and tell it OK. And so that is our chamber. These are little deflectors that are going to be opening up and all that good stuff during the alt-fire mode. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and create another cylinder now with 6 sides that we can simply pull back. That'll fill this area right here. So back over here from Create, we'll come back over to Geometry, our Standard Primitives, and Cylinder, and we'll go ahead and drag this guy out. That's good enough for the moment. And I'm going to hit F3 up here so I can see my reference, even though we don't have to necessarily work with that because we've got it over here as well.
Yeah, and it's a circle.
But, yeah, but, you know, I like working with references all over the place. So, actually, we will go like that. If you want to talk real quick, Philip, while I size this up, about overlapping geometry, the problem with Unreal?
Yeah, definitely. When you're doing a model for Unreal Tournament, there's another rule you have to obey. And that is that if you have interpenetration geometry, you're going to get some bad flickering in Unreal. So to avoid this, make sure you don't have any polygons that overlap. And again, the line tool is great for making sure that you don't have that.
Okay, so close enough.
All right.
Right about there. And good.
Yeah, we
now,
got
one of the
6 sides.
One of the things that now, of course, the way our reference is drawn, the way that our barrel works, we've got a little bit of a problem right here, where this is going to actually be kind of sticking out. And we could go in here and rotate this, or you know what, we could say this is a case where, you know, the reference is good and everything, but perhaps we need to move it down just a little bit like that. So it's going to be a little bit off, but it's not going to be a problem. So next thing we want to do, I'm going to go and start working on the body of the gun, but just to make things easy to see, I'm going to simply come in here and select all of my geometry that I've got so far, and I'm just going to hide it for the moment. So over on this display panel, we'll just simply do hide selected.
All right.
So now over here in my front view, I'll go ahead and hit F3 so that I can see exactly what I'm doing. And you know what? This character, since we've got them lined up, and actually, if you think about it, it looks pretty cool. Character looks like she's actually holding a gun. Let's go ahead and get rid of her for the moment.
Okay.
Because we really don't need her there if you think about it. We've got everything lined up.
Up.
So from display again, we can just come down here to, since she's froze at the moment, we can do a unfreeze by hit and simply just click on her like such. And then we can go up here to hide and say we're going to do a hide by hit, and then boom. So now we no longer have to worry about that. So now we're starting to rock and roll pretty good. Let's go ahead and come back over here.
Start building the base.
And build the base. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line, a spline that's going to run around this inner part. This outer part, you're going to see how it's extruded out in just a minute.
Yeah.
When you're working with somebody else's art, it's a good idea. You know, if there's any way that a 3D model can be made in real life, in other words, sculpted, etc., that always is the best way to go. But if it's just an image like such, definitely make sure you have some sort of perspective drawing or access to your artist so that you can say, hey, what exactly did you mean?
Like?
Yeah, because sometimes it can be hard to make things out based on just these orthographic type drawings like this. So I'll go ahead and switch over here.
And sometimes the person that made the references didn't draw all the lines necessary.
This is true too. How you doing, Philip?
Hey.
So we'll go ahead and I'm just going to start right here. Click. And Philip, if you want to talk for a second, I'll just draw this.
It's kind of nice. This was a feature that started in 4, or this technique you're going to be using now, that you could suddenly draw splines and convert these splines to a surface using the Convert to Poly option, and then actually turn a 2D curve into a surface you could work from. Right.
So now that I've got this guy in place, what I want to do is just simply come over here, and we can grab him, do the spline. Actually, no, we'll grab, spline. I don't know why I click segment. And then there's a mirror. There's all sorts of ways we can go about doing this. We could have just simply duplicated and mirrored it as a real object and then attached. Or in this case, I just want to grab the entire spline, and I can simply scroll down, and you'll see I've got a mirror option for the spline selection. And I can simply say I want to make sure that it's a copy, mirror it, and then I can go ahead and just
move it on over.
Pull it on over. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go full screen on this. And I'm not so much worried about this area right here. I'm more worried about my reference so that I got my thickness right. So about right there looks pretty
looks good.
And so now we want to go ahead and switch back over to vertex mode, and I've got multiple vertices in here, so I'll simply come in here. Since they're not on top of one another, I'll go ahead and turn my, that's really high, threshold up, click weld, so now you can see I've got one vertex. I'll come down here, do the same thing again, and now I can simply just come up here and hit delete. Hit delete. That'll just keep any additional geometry from being created when I start doing the extrusion.
So we're keeping our face count even lower.
Exactly. And again, when you're modeling weapons or you're modeling anything for a game, you really need to concern yourself with the poly count. It's really important. So let's go ahead and switch back up here to line, and then Let's go ahead and come back into
the
this
pivot if you want.
And yeah, we can go ahead and center the pivot. So we'll come over here to hierarchy, tab, and we'll say affect pivot only, center to object, turn that back off. We're good to go. So next thing I want to do is go ahead and center this guy up. So we're starting up here at the front. So again, I'm using my reference right here. I'm wanting to line up with this line. So about right there looks good. And now let's go ahead. Now this is what Philip was talking about a second ago. That's really cool. I'm going to take this line, right-click on it, and I'm going to convert it to an editable poly. This is going to give me one side that is now a face, and the other side is a problem.
A border.
It's just a border. Yeah, there's nothing there. So let's go ahead and switch over into border sub-object mode. And then if I hit F3, you can see it. I can select the border, and I can simply come down up under the Edit Borders, roll out, and click Cap, and that'll cap it. So now if we hit F3 again, you'll see that I have a solid face on both sides.
Yep.
So now we'll just go ahead and come over to Polygon Selection, grab this back. I'll go ahead and hit F2. So let's make sure we got the right one selected here. There we go.
There you go.
F2 makes it shade it, so it's real easy. It's not just a red highlighted line. And now it's time to simply grab the old Extrudes tool and start moving out. I'm going to back this off so I can see everything up here. Grab Extrude, click, drag. You can see I'm going to come and line myself up.
And someone drew the lines right this time?
So, well, Mr. Philip, we lift a few out back here. So we're going to draw another one out. Hello, hello, hello. Undo that. Redo that. That was really weird. Let us do extrude again. Thank you. And we'll extrude to about right there. Okay. Now we're going to extrude again. But you need to be really careful. It could very easily look like we could extrude all the way to the back. But you can see how we have this angling in and this angling in right here. Thing we can do is simply kind of rotate around so we can see our top reference, and you can see that our next line is actually back here. Somebody kind of left the lines out on the side. But that's okay. We're just seeing ways that we can work around.
We're not pointing fingers here.
No, never. So we're simply going to, I'm looking again at our perspective view, so that's close enough for me, and we'll simply extrude one final time to about right there, and
good.
That looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and turn our extrude tool off. I can go ahead and hit F4 so we can turn on edge faces, we can see what's going on. And then we can simply come up here, grab this front, let's go ahead and switch over to a non-uniform scale. Let's scale this guy down in the x-axis. Okay, again, I'm just kind of watching my reference here. We're a little bit smaller, but I'm not going to really stress myself over it. I mean, the idea is just to get the basics of the gun going here. So that's pretty good. And then in the back, same thing, except this time we can go ahead and come up here. Let's do a uniform scale. And again, by watching this down here, we should end up being pretty decent. It's just a little off, but can you live with that?
It's okay.
So if we come up here now, we can hit Alt-X, switch over into an X-ray mode, and F4. I say that looks pretty decent. Happy or?
Yeah, perhaps move the vertices up a little bit in the back. Did you do that already?
Which ones do you want to do?
Very, very back.
The whole
you already
group?
did it.
Yeah, by doing a uniform scale, it gave me the slant on top and the bottom. Everybody's just got their own ways. So let's go ahead and come back over here into a shaded mode. Next thing I want to do is grab all of my faces right here in the center section.
Could we be able to use the loop or the ring here?
Well, as for selection?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay.
But that, just marquee around the whole thing, and there you go. So we'll grab it, and I'll come back over here. We're going to do extrude again, and I'll go ahead and open up my options. And you can see by default, that's not necessarily what we want to do. We don't want to extrude type to be by group. We want it to be by local normals. Holy cow, that's pretty big. So let's go ahead and adjust this. Now, this dialog right here is kind of giving you a preview until you apply or click OK. So we're just going to come in here and somewhere to right about there. Right about there.
So in other words, you can let go of the spinner, and it won't. The second you drag it again, it won't
start another
extrusion like it did in the old days.
Exactly. So now we can just go and tell it, okay, if you hit apply, it's going to commit that and immediately show you this amount of extrusion again. Right. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And now you can see, I'm going to go ahead just because I'm just a big fan of working from, that looks better. I'm going to go ahead and pull this section out right here, so I'm going to switch over into vertex mode. And we could just go into X-ray, Alt-X again. Select these vertices at the top. I'm going to hit W for translate and move these guys on back up to about right there. It's close enough. We'll grab these guys right here, and we'll simply move them back in the X-axis.
There you go.
Just so that it's straight up and down. Alt-X again. And so that's the shape that we're looking for in the back. And real quick, me personally, I'm just going to go see how far the front's off, because this could get us into a little bit of trouble a little bit later on when we're building this handle up here.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and move it down. So that's pretty good there. And, we could come in here and make this a little bit closer. Maybe right there. I'm just kind of compensate a little bit between the two. So this is where we're at the moment, and this is a good time for us to go ahead and save in case we have any issues or anything. So we'll just go ahead and hit save. So the next thing we'll work on, what do you say, Philip? Let's go ahead and get the top.
Yeah, build some handles.
So we'll get the handles for the top going on. You can see by looking over here in the front reference that we've actually got 2 handles going on. So I'll go ahead and come back here into a polygon select mode, and we're going to be actually using our top view. We're going to grab this guy right here, and let's just go ahead and hit, oops, wrong view, F2, and let's go ahead and hit F2 back down here. And now, what I want to do is I want to split this in half, and then we're going to inset the 2 sides. And we're going to try to be as efficient as possible on this. So I'll go ahead and come down and activate my slice plane. And now I'm going to use my slice plane to slice that guy in half. So I'm going to come up here, rotate, angle snap, and rotate this guy around Z. And we're looking for a 90-degree rotation, so right there. And you can see that, boom, it's already dead on. So we'll go ahead and click Slice. We'll turn Slice Plane off. So with both of them still selected, the next thing I want to do is go ahead.
I'll show that we actually have 2 faces in your perspective viewport.
Down here?
Yeah, so we can see it. There you go.
How about like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and come up here, and we're going to do an inset. So this is basically just an extrusion without any actual extrusion occurring. So we'll come up here, turn this guy on, and this time I don't want to do by group. I want to do by polygon.
So now we definitely see we have 2 different separate faces.
And then we could come in here and adjust our amount. That's good enough. I'm also going to come in here and do some scaling because I know that the size of this is not very, the handles are not really thick, not really big.
Yeah.
So maybe something right about there. And I'm going to take and simply move these guys back.
Okay.
And also I'm going to come over here and move them in as well because the handles are relatively close to one another. So there, and maybe something like that.
Yeah, a little bit out.
Does that look pretty good to you?
Maybe a little bit out, a little bit to the right.
On both of them?
Yeah, no, well, sure.
Well, they need to be because they're a little off. There we go.
There you go.
So something like that. All right, so the next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and deselect that guy. So this is what we've got at the moment. So now we want to go ahead and make our handle up here. So to make our handle, let's go ahead and go full screen up here in this view. I'm simply just going to grab a spline and draw it around here, and then we will extrude along.
Again, this is, well, you can start drawing and I'll talk.
That sounds good.
This is a lovely new feature.
And I'll count real low while you're talking so people will, we can refer to the counting in a minute.
Okay. So you're going to say 1?
1, 2. Go ahead and count.
So this is a new feature of Max 5. They were actually able to extrude along a spline. You say a number?
I was just kidding with you. Go ahead.
Okay. So we're simply just going to draw out a spline and pick a polygon and tell this polygon to extrude and turn or orient itself along the spline. So we're going to be really, really efficient when we create this handle. And the really nice thing is we can do 2 at the same time. The spline doesn't have to be on top of your face. The face will do it relatively, which we'll see in a second.
Okay, so
how
now
many did you count to?
I counted 11.
All right.
So let's go ahead and come back in here and see how 11 can be our friend here shortly. I don't mean to do that. Let's just turn that line off, grab this guy right here.
So by 11, you mean you did 11?
11 vertices.
11 vertices.
So we'll come back over here, go back into polygon selection, and we'll just grab this guy, and we'll grab this guy over here. And now I'm going to come down, as Philip was talking about just a second ago, to extrude along a spline, and I'm going to open up my options. And we'll simply say pick spline. This guy right here, look at that. That's quite nice.
Very nice.
And, of course, we counted 11, so we may want to do something like 11 segments maybe.
Okay.
Wow.
They shipped up nice.
That turned out really good.
You almost sound surprised there.
So, yeah, because sometimes they shift.
They do, yeah.
But even, I mean, they're still not perfect, so what we are going to need to do, of course, is go ahead and we'll switch back over into an orthographic view. And I'm going to come up here, switch to vertex, and then Alt-X so that I can see exactly what's going on.
And perhaps turn the transparency of your mesh down.
Yeah.
The gray map aside.
Actually, yeah, so we'll just come up here and grab this guy and turn this guy up a little bit. And so we can see.
Good enough. There you go.
And now we can start moving around. While Philip finds something he can just talk with you guys about.
I was just mentioning that even though our gun is in X-ray, sometimes when you'll have double geometry, and in the case we have 2 handles lying on top of each other in the orthographical viewport, then even though you're in X-ray, sometimes you won't be able to see completely through it. So in that case, you might want to go ahead and assign a material to your object and then just use the opacity to control the amount of see-through.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should be done by now.
I'm just taking my time. Every time I start, well, I won't say that. I just don't want nothing to crash. How about that? We've got so much going on, and sometimes sometimes Max 5 is just not real happy about that.
Again, here you might have to move the edge or the face from the base down a little bit,
We'll just
or
come and
pull that
do
guy up a little
that.
bit.
We don't
Because, again,
want
we
nothing.
don't want any. Yeah, we don't want any overlapping faces.
Exactly. And so, and here we run into another line situation that you're welcome to talk about.
So the guy that drew the references didn't exactly draw all the lines. You can see we're missing one right here as the handle bends, but no edge seems to been drawn.
But again, you know, we're just going to get it close for the purposes of doing this demo right here. Let's go and switch back over.
Artistic freedom, we'll call
Alt-X.
that.
And how about that, Mr. Pearl?
Looks very nice.
I'm liking it. So the next thing we do is, what do you say?
Put some handles on.
Come on, put the bottoms. All right, so for doing the bottom, let's just do 2 insets again, and we'll work from there.
Okay.
So switch back over here in the polygon select. I'll grab this guy right here. I'll grab this guy right here. And inset mode by polygon. And then, of course, we could just get the amount kind of close, tell it OK.
And then just go non-uniform scale.
Yeah, come over here, non-uniform scale. And I just work with these guys one at a time at this point. So I'll come over here. I'm going to switch over to a local view just so that this guy stays matching with my selected face here. And now I can come in here, and you'll see I'm just going down for the thickness.
Skinny there.
Yeah. This is where we're going to be pulling our handle from. Looking at my reference there, you can see what I'm doing. So that looks pretty good. And we can see over here in the side, though, he's going to be a little bit longer, and we can go ahead and move him back as well. And since this guy's not really angled, and you know what? I think the reference actually has this angle. That's why that line may be off a little bit.
Okay.
This is what happens when we start going really fast. But in this case right here, what do you say? We just leave it the way it is? Or
I
do you
think we're good. Yeah, well, you might want to scale up a little bit and pull them back a little bit.
Yeah, I am going to do that.
Okay.
I'm just wondering about, so we can do something like that.
Okay.
And come back up here. And if you want to talk for just a second, I'm not getting real picky, but I'm just going to come back in and
pull that back a little
yeah,
bit.
see, this is what's bothering me right here.
Oh, look at that.
So I want it to stay relatively close.
But when we go to extrude, sometimes, or I'm assuming this is the way you'll do it, instead of extruding and beveling as you go along, typically it's a little bit more productive to do all the extrusions, and once you have your mass, then go back and tweak the vertices. So extrude, and then start pushing and pulling vertices.
So what do you think about that?
That looks nice.
That matches a lot better.
Yeah.
I can't believe we skipped that, but that's what happens when you kind of get in a hurry. So let's go ahead and come back over here and switch back into this mode right there. So we've got the back set up. Looks pretty decent. Now we can just simply come back over here and we can start extruding it. Let's see, how well are we matching? Not too bad. Actually, that'll work for this. So we'll go ahead and come back down here. We'll grab extrude. And again, I'm just looking up at my reference above me. So we'll extrude one right there. We'll extrude again, bringing us down to about right there. And then I'll go ahead and extrude one more time, bringing us on down to somewhere in there, because I'm just going to come in here and start moving around.
Yeah, exactly.
Vertices.
Get the mass first.
So we'll go ahead and go full screen right here, back over into X-ray mode. And now this is what I was talking about. I can simply come in here and kind of fix it all up. So we'll just grab and start shaping.
And then the viewer might be considering, well, how are you going to beat to do the bottom now?
Or just kill somebody because there's another edge missing right off in here. So we'll put that in place. And then we're just going to need to come in and do another extrusion here in a second. So I'll go ahead and do that. And we'll get that guy to about right there. Looks good. And now let's go ahead and fix for the fact that we didn't get enough extrusions because we were missing in our drawing an edge there, which is no big deal. Again, it's just a matter of coming over and doing one more extrude. And, well, not so far. Just something close like that because we can go ahead and come back up here and continue. So we'll switch back over into full view. And with this one right here, we'll go ahead and shape. Just kind of move them down like such. Move this guy down as well.
You're not aligning completely to the reference because
we're about to do something like this.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Listen to you. So let's go ahead and come in here, and we're going to extrude out again. So this time I'll come and extrude like such. And Philip and I both have two different ways about going on how we want to do this. I'm simply going to extrude mine out. I don't want a really large lip right there, so I'll just get it kind of small like that, tell it OK. And me personally, I'm kind of a fan of coming in here, and we'll go ahead and switch this back over to view, and I'm going to scale down. It just kind of rounds it off a little bit.
Nice.
It makes it kind of nice. And then to fix everything up back here, of course, we could come in here and start moving vertices, but At the moment, I'm just going to come over here and grab this edge and this edge back here, and we'll go ahead and do a slight chamfer on them.
All right.
Maybe a little bit less. Yeah, it's about right
Just
there.
kind of a little rounding to them.
So that I now could simply come in here if I wanted to and select those guys and move them forward.
Match the reference.
And down to match the reference a little bit.
There you go.
And, you know, we could spend a little bit of time pulling our points up and all, but again, this is what I was talking about. I like the rounded look.
Okay.
So we'll just Alt-X, and this is what we've got at the moment. So what do you think?
That's nice.
Halfway decent. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead, and we're almost there. We need to go ahead and get the front pulled out, and we need to go ahead and pull out our clip from up underneath.
Yeah.
So again, we're going to be doing the exact same thing by coming in here. We're going to select this guy right here and start scaling. Anything you want to talk about, Philip?
Let's get down to match the reference, and then extrude, extrude, extrude. We're almost done.
Yeah, Phillips wants us to hurry because he wants to go out tonight. Not that I blame him. We've been recording stuff around the clock for the most part, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, if I can talk about if you see the clip there, we're just going to be doing that later on with a single extrude.
Changing the subject, are we?
But in Max 5, you can actually there's a new feature called Hinge, which is kind of nice, and let's say we're not demoing it here. I guess they'll have to wait until the Max 3 VTM. The Hinge tool will basically let you rotate a new polygon as it extrudes out of a polygon. So you'll click a polygon, choose the Hinge tool, then click the edge and drag, and you'll see a polygon kind of coming out at an angle, which is a really nice tool. But in this case, we can just get away with doing a single extrusion for the clip.
Exactly.
If that made any sense.
So now what I'm going to do is just simply come over here and start shaping. So we'll grab these guys. Again, we have a little edge issue up here, so there's an edge missing from right there. No big deal, though. And something like that. We'll put a little bit of an angle on that. Let's go ahead and take this guy up, maybe to about right there. Let's take this big mess back a little bit, so maybe right in there. Grab these guys, pull them back. This guy right here.
There you go.
Something like such. Take these two, move them up a little bit,
Look at
and
that.
just kind of size it.
Size it.
Size it. And is that good enough, or
That's
do you?
pretty good.
Yeah, we don't really need any thickness, do you think? Or well, we could just simply select like this. This would kind of look nice, I think. Again, this is going a little bit above and beyond, but we could come from up underneath and do a non-uniform on X, and coming a little bit more. There we go. Again, it gives it a little bit of a rounding look at the bottom.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. Yeah. Okay, so
I'm agreeing.
I know it's just one of your habits, and I love to pick on you about it. So the last thing we're going to do is another inset, and we'll simply take this guy and start bringing him in. Actually, that's good enough. So we'll tell it OK, and looking at our
A reference?
how far do we want our clip to go out? Maybe not quite that
No, I
far.
can take the reference there.
So maybe
How about that size?
so that it kind of matches up.
I didn't say yeah.
Darn it, I was trying to catch you. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and just come in here, extrude, and we'll extrude out again. Doesn't matter where to because we're going to simply switch back over to vertex mode. Alt-X to go over here into X-ray, and we'll just grab and move. So we'll move this guy on up to maybe right there, grab this guy.
And shoot, drag and move there. The new hotkeys are for Max are W, E, and R. And then Q for select. So W is move, E is rotate, and R is scale.
Wow, look at that.
That's very nice.
You know what I'm thinking? It looks like, I'm just getting picky now.
And pull it down.
So,
And pull the other edge. You have another edge you can pull back there if you want to fix that.
the other edge I can pull back. You
Right
talking about
behind the
pulling,
handle, I think you have another set of vertices.
okay, right behind the handle, right in here. Are you talking about these guys right here?
Right up there, up here. The
guess.
top one you have selected right there. You see you have an extrovert right there.
This right here?
Yeah, you can pull that guy back.
Is an X. Oh, you're wanting to actually angle it like that?
Yeah, well,
I'm
I'm
not-
not trying to match the reference.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of doing that, but we could take all of those and just go ahead and go full screen right here and deselect, and we could just grab all
yeah,
of
that
those,
would be good, yeah.
move them back like this. But the problem is, again, we get into the difference between the two references that we're working with. So maybe I'll go ahead and move it up, and we'll just fix this guy right here. So about like such.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and fix this too.
Now you're getting picky.
I'm sorry. All right, so there we go. I can live with that a lot better if you can live with it. I guess we could be even more picky and just come back here. And just kidding, there we go. So as you see, we're pretty much dead on with what we set out to do.
So let's try maybe in shortened perspective.
Perspective.
Hide some planes.
Alt X, and we'll go ahead and come over here into our perspective view. And let's go ahead and come over to display. We'll do an unfreeze all. And we'll come, grab some planes in here. So grab this guy. You know what? Let's just do a hide by hit again. And get rid of that guy, and then we're on the back side of these. So get rid of that guy, and we'll get rid of that guy.
Okay. So a nice little base
and unhide. No, we don't want to do this. Unhide by name. We've got our cylinders up for the front, and
all our ingons.
All of our ingons as well. So we'll go ahead and unhide all of that.
Okay.
Look at that. Look at that. And, we could really, while we're having so much fun doing this, we could just do another unhide by name and unhide our little female commando there. And, again, there she is holding her new weapon. What do you think?
Very, very nice.
So at this point, I say we're pretty much done with modeling.
Yes.
And we're ready to move on. So I'll go ahead and save our scene. And we'll be back in the next section to go ahead and start talking. What are we going to talk about next section? UVs?
UV upwrapping, yeah.
All right. Sounds good to me. And in that section, I'll let Philip drive for a little while.
Okay.
All right. So thanks, guys.